To ja zacznę, dlatego że mamy bardzo mało czasu, a bardzo ciekawy temat i za chwilę też kilka osób pewnie dołączy w trakcie. Ja pozwolę sobie zacząć krótko po polsku. Witam Państwa serdecznie. Ja nazywam się Irek Biliński. Mam przyjemność reprezentować organizację, która się nazywa For Results. Robimy wiele ciekawych rzeczy związanych z rozwojem ludzi, ale też przede wszystkim prowadzimy różnego rodzaju transformacje i pomagamy firmom w drodze do doskonałości organizacyjnej i operacyjnej. I jednym z naszych partnerów, ponieważ wiedzę też czerpiemy bardzo mocno u źródła, jednym z naszych wspaniałych partnerów jest osoba wyjątkowa, która oprócz tego, że przez wiele lat była konsultantem, obecnie pisze wspaniałe książki o tym właśnie, jak prowadzić firmy do doskonałości. I taką jedną z tych książek postanowiliśmy wydać w języku polskim, czyli chcemy też zaciekawić tematyką doskonałości polskiego czytelnika, polskiego lidera, polskiego menadżera. Także ja mam niezmiernie wielką przyjemność zaprezentować jednego z naszych partnerów, czyli Chrisa Butterwortha. Jeżeli Państwo pozwolicie, przejdę teraz na język angielski, żeby Chrisa już oficjalnie przedstawić po angielsku. Chris, hello Chris, I'm just switching to English. I hope you feel the change when I speak Polish and English.
Thank you.
I have a huge honor and privilege to introduce Chris Butterworth, one of the famous people in the excellence, operational and organizational excellence in the world. Chris is the really world famous person who write a fantastic books about excellence. It's a Shingo facilitator, Shingo examiner, Shingo Academy fellow as well. So today, Chris, we have a real honor and privilege to have a chance to talk about the Polish version of your latest book, which is a Leading Excellence, 5 Heads of Adaptive Leaders. We are so proud that we did it. The book is printed, the book is ready. And today we have a chance to introduce your work and the book to our clients, to our to people who are really interested in leading excellence. Floor is yours.
Sorry. Thank you, Eric. That's a fantastic introduction. Can you see my screen? Just checking everyone can.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Eric mentioned that I've co-written quite a few books previously. This one came out in September of 2024, so very new, and it's absolutely fantastic to see it in Polish. This will be the first book that's been translated into another language and into Polish. So I am very, very pleased that it's reaching more people that way. The author profits, my author profits from this go to charity, as they do for most of the books. I must mention my co-authors, because I don't write any books on my own. So with this book, I've partnered with my friends Stephen Dargan and Brad Jevons, and Eric to create the Polish version. So today I'm just going to give you a very high-level overview. I hope that many of you are able to make it over to the launch in Warsaw in May, which will give you some more details of at the end. But you will also get a copy of this high-level overview at the end of the session. For those who prefer to listen to books rather than read, it has also come out last week as an audiobook. But I'm sorry, it's still only in English as an audiobook because my Polish is just not good enough to do it as an audiobook. But it is available. So
very important information. We will make an audiobook during the summer. So I hope the audiobook in Polish will be available from September.
Fantastic. I've forgotten. Wonderful. Okay, so let me just walk you through some of the key elements of the book. We wrote Leading Excellence because what we realized was that leaders have a key role to play in the culture of any organization. And yet we're often, as leaders, not taught what we need to do to manage that culture. So that was the purpose behind the book, to create really a handbook for leadership that helps leaders to understand how they can create great cultures in their organizations, making it a better place for them to work and a better place for their people and a more successful organization. One of the things that motivated us to do this was the figures that exist on engagement of employees. And this is from a recent Gallup survey. They do it every year. It doesn't change very much, unfortunately. And it consistently shows that engagement levels around the world are generally around 25%, plus or minus 1 or 2 points. So it's not great. If we think about that the other way, I think it's always good as leaders to try and think about things like this in a positive. Imagine what the potential could be if we could make 75% of our people engaged. It would just be tremendous. Now, what the research shows is that there are 3 things that have the biggest impact on engagement in organizations. The number one is how valued, or what the value of the relationship is with a person's direct manager or leader. So we started thinking about that in more detail and said, well, okay, how can we help people to be better leaders? And with the help of some professionals, we came up with what we call the core belief system. Now, why we came up with this is that we came to the conclusion that if we want to be better leaders, we first of all have to have a better understanding of ourselves. What is it that motivates us? What is our purpose? What are our values? And the reason that's important is because all of us are first and foremost feeling people who have the ability to think. But most of the time, when we respond to a situation or a conversation, we respond on our emotions, on our feelings. You can test this for yourselves. Just reflect. Have you ever sent an email to someone or ever said something and immediately thought, oh no, I wish I hadn't said that, or I wish I hadn't sent that? And that happens because you respond emotionally. So if we can understand ourselves better, our purpose and our values, we can reduce the risk of responding purely emotionally, because we can respond on a foundation of that purpose and values. So in the first 3 chapters of the books, we go through how to understand what your core belief system is and how to develop it with a whole series of exercises. If we can do that, what happens is this. Instead of immediately responding at an emotional level, we engage the higher parts of our brain to think, what is the right response in this context? How should I respond? What's the impact I want to have on the way this person is thinking or feeling? And then we thought, well, that is great, but we need something that helps us to pause. What is it that helps us to just stop, say, okay, what's the right response here? And that's why we developed the 5 hats. Because you cannot be a leader with only one single approach to everything. We have to develop the ability to be adaptive and to build a habit that allows us to respond with some thought behind it. So the idea is that the 5 hats of the adaptive leader are different hats that we can just imaginarily put on to help us to have the right conversation. So we go into detail in the book about the different hats and when to use them, but I'll give you a high-level overview here. So the coaching hat, I think, is critical, and coaching, in our view, is actually about, asking questions that help people to think for themselves. Leaders often confuse coaching with mentoring. For us, mentoring is about giving advice and sharing expertise. And we need to do that sometimes, and we put that as part of the teach hat, because what we're doing is transferring knowledge. Mentoring is a form of teaching. We need to do other things in teaching, and it's good for leaders to practice how to teach, because every time we teach, we learn something. It's one of the reasons I really enjoy teaching workshops, because I learn something every time. However, if we only teach, only mentor, and don't coach, we actually reduce the ability of people to think for themselves. So the challenge we have to do with a coach hat is, even when we know the answer, actually ask the right questions that allow people to think for themselves and develop their own capabilities. Otherwise, as leaders, we find ourselves still at work at 7 o'clock in the evening, doing everybody else's job. The other hat, another hat, a very important hat, is the inspire hat. And we link this to purpose. I said there was 3 things that drive engagement. The second one is purpose. Can people see a direct link between what they do and the purpose of the organization? Even better, does their personal purpose have any connection to the organizational purpose? What leaders need to do is inspire people to help them to see those connections and constantly reinforce those connections. Very occasionally, we'll need to use the direct hat. What we see is people don't use this when they should. 2 examples. When there's a safety issue, we need to be very directive and say, no, stop. That is not the right thing to do. It's not safe. The other key use of the direct hat is when we see behaviors that are not as we expect or not as we agreed. So we have to be directive and call out immediately when behaviors are not what we expect. And the 5th hat is the support hat. Now, the support hat is about understanding our people, understanding when they need help, what kind of help they need. Do they need training? Do they need guidance? But it's also about giving recognition or reinforcing the things that we want people to do. So recognition is a key element of the support hat, because recognition embeds behavior. What we do with recognition is recognize, what we should do is recognize behaviors that we want more of. That's really the purpose of recognition, is we recognize something that's good to encourage people to do more of that. Leaders are often reluctant to do this. I will see people say things like, well, they're just doing the job. Mustn't underestimate the power of recognition. It actually embeds behavior. So we should recognize behavior more than the task that someone has done. It's the way that they've done it is we recognize it. And that's all part of the support hat, because we're supporting them to grow as individuals by recognizing good things that they've done. So that's a very high level overview of the hats. But the idea is, what that allows us to do is, in any particular context, we can consider the person, consider the context, and before we respond emotionally, we can pause, think, what is the most appropriate hat to wear in this conversation? And then respond in the right way. Now, when we get good at this, in any conversation, we will not just use one hat. We're likely to need one or two, even three hats. It'll depend, it'll change, but that'll just come with practice. Many conversations we plan to have. So when we plan to have a conversation, we know what we want to talk about, we know the individual and the context, we can think in advance about what is the most appropriate hat we should be wearing in that conversation. I wanted to talk a little bit about what does time allocation look like for leaders in high-performing organizations. And here's an example from the book. So what we see in many organizations is that a lot of time is spent by leaders working on day-to-day stuff, firefighting, fixing issues that have just arisen that day, some time on continuous improvement, and sometimes working on the culture. In the highest performing organizations around the world, it's the other way around, where the majority of the time is spent working on culture, some time on continuous improvement, and a lot less time on the day-to-day stuff. Now, what do we mean by working on culture? Well, it's all about the type of conversations we're having. Are we talking about behaviors? Are we supporting people in the right way to, when we have conversations with them, are we talking about the culture or are we just driving KPIs? Are we thinking, when we visit teams, do we go and attend the daily performance meetings? Do we ask them about behaviors and how they're feeling? Do we actually support people to deliver great results? A nice way to test this right at the start is to think about your own leadership meetings. Think about the agenda. What percentage of that time in a leadership team meeting is allocated to talking about people and culture? Quite often what we see, it might be the last thing on the agenda and it gets taken over by operational issues. Several organizations we know are now actually separating out separate discussion to have about people and culture so that they can really focus on that meaningfully and in depth. However, we can allocate a lot of time. We can talk about the behaviors. We can reinforce those behaviors that we want with the right, wearing the right hats. But we need to do something else as well. Because if we do all that work and don't review our systems, we are likely to get the behaviors we've always had. Because purpose and systems will drive behavior. So when we've got the behavior, when we define the behaviors when we know which hats we should be wearing, we should also then start looking for where are we getting behaviors that we didn't expect. Because that is telling us we need to make an adjustment to the system. And here's a simple model that we go into a bit more detail in the book, but we need to always ask ourselves, what is the purpose for this system? And we must point out here, I don't mean IT systems. IT systems are tools that enable our operational systems. What I'm talking about here is our processes, our operational processes. So what's the purpose of this process? What behaviors do we need to deliver that purpose? And then how might we measure those behaviors using something called key behavioral indicators, which might be a number or just might be red or green. So that, and we give lots of examples of those in the book. So what we do then is if we define our ideal, we answer those questions, we can then design a system that's going to drive the behaviors that we need. Or we can amend an existing system that's going to drive the behaviors that we need. Because what we want to achieve is an environment where people are committed, not constrained. So why that? What we're trying to do is create freedom for people to act if we have set clear behavioral standards, if we have given them systems that help them to do the job rather than make it hard for them to do the job, we get high levels of engagement and much higher levels of discretionary effort, because people enjoy coming into work and want to do more. It's a win-win all around. If we design systems that constrain people, that stop them thinking for themselves, that tell them this is what you do, when you'll do it, how you'll do it, and you must not deviate from that in any way whatsoever, even if you've got an idea about how to make it better, then we may as well just employ robots. So that was a very high level view. I wanted to leave a few minutes for a conversation between myself and Eric, and also give you some information. The launch event is in Warsaw at 4 o'clock on the 19th. And Eric, could you remind people where it is?
Yes, of course. The event will be in Warsaw on the street Konstruktorska, and you will, if you just sign in to the event, you will get the information on the email a couple of days before. So there is convenient parking next to the place, and our partner Joanna Hurande, the beautiful place with the modern furniture, will be co-organizing the event with us. So we will let you know. Warsaw, Konstruktorska Street on 19. We start from 4 reception, and we will start the event at 4:30. So please, if you can, if you wish, please join us. It will be a really great event. And every person who join us will have a free copy of the Chris book. And if you wish, the book will be for free. But if you wish, we will ask you to pay money for the charity, because every money from the Chris book is going to the charity, and we won't be worse. So we decided to give not only full income, but full revenue of the book to the charity. So that's all about the event.
Right.
And Chris, as we discussed, we will very soon make a Polish version of the workshop as well, because we believe that 5 Heads of Adaptive Leader will be a very good idea to teach as well. And with Chris, we are working on the dedicated workshop for our clients, and we will announce it very, very soon, after May, how we will do it, when we will do it. So if you wish, we will send you the invitation for the workshop as well. Chris, I have 2 questions or 1 question, and I will ask our fantastic audience, please, if you have any questions to Chris, it's a great opportunity just to put your question on the chat, and I will read the chat and I will ask your question. You can ask your question either in English or in Polish. I will translate it, so no worries. Just question, Chris, if you have any questions. I have 1 question, Chris, maybe 1 comment, because the book is really great, and I have 2 favorite things about the book. One I already use with the client, so this is the purpose, and you mention in the book about the personal individual purpose, and you mentioned that it should be somehow aligned with company purpose. And because purpose drive behaviors, I have a question: how you check what is the level of alignment between the individual purpose and the company purpose, and from your perspective, why it's so important?
Well, it's actually an exercise that we have in the book. It's often
Yes.
because people haven't thought about their personal purpose. No, it's something that's kind of buried often. So it's and it's not a complicated exercise. It's just a simple few things to go through, but it helps you to think about your purpose. And if you can then connect that in any way to actually, for example, my purpose, and this can change as you get more mature. So my purpose developed into something new a few years ago, which was to help organizations to realize the full potential of their people. And now so it doesn't have to be anything complicated, but that's my personal purpose that I landed on. And then I think, well, what am I doing that all the things that I do in terms of the choices that I make, how I spend my time, are they in support of my personal purpose? So that's one of the, they guides me to make sure I'm working on the right things. Now, not everyone will have a different purpose, and what they struggle with often is to see, is there any connection between what I do and what the organization does? Often they need help. So one of the key things of leaders is to help people to see that connection. And for example, this is a story from one of my co-authors. He was at a site recently, and a cleaner came in to listen to the end of the workshop, and he said to her, she said, "Oh, sorry, I don't want to disturb you." He said, "No, please carry on. It's fine. What you're doing is really important." And once the workshop was closing, she said, "Well, what do you mean it's really important? I'm just cleaning." He says, and then he went on to explain to her that if she didn't clean, there'd be a big issue in terms of health and safety, that actually what she was doing was contributing to making it a safe place to work, and had a really nice conversation with her where she left really proud of the job that she was doing. And that's an example of how leaders need to help people connect to their purpose, because her purpose was she really wanted to help people. So she was, but she hadn't seen that connection between the job she was doing and her personal purpose and the organizational purpose. When you do it, it's a great place to be. When you get that connection. I tell you a little story from I did a lean excellence workshop a few months ago, and at the end of it, someone came up to me and he said, "Thank you. You might not want to hear this, but I've decided I'm going to resign as a result of this workshop." And oh no, no, and I was really quite shocked and upset. And he said, "No, it was a public workshop, so he wasn't resigning from where I was teaching." I said, he said, no, it's really helped. For a year, I have been very unhappy at work, and I haven't understood why. What this has helped me to understand is my personal values and purpose will never align to the organization that I'm with now. And if I don't leave, I'm not going to be, not only am I going to be unhappy, I'm going to not do a great job, and it's going to be bad for me and bad for the organization. So that was a really insightful conversation. Thanks, sir. All right, great question.
Thank you very much for the answer. I can only confirm, because now working with clients, we ask hundreds of leaders to have a short discussion about the personal purpose. And the leaders were really astonished about the level of engagement when they start to talk with the people about the individual purpose and how it's aligned with the company purpose. They were a little bit afraid to discuss, because it's so sensitive matter, but when they discuss, happy that the individual purpose is really quite common, that it's really aligned. So it's a fantastic exercise. And we have a question from Pavel. How difficult it could be to run 5 heads approach with different company cultures? There are some common sources of authority, and hierarchy is in the most cases one of them. What about your experience working with different nationalities? Probably when I can just add one sentence, in Polish, we very often, the leaders often use the direct head, which they force, they know what to do. They are always in the middle of all decisions, and how to switch between the heads if you have a force style, or if you really like to be a direct boss.
So it's a coaching conversation with that leader about, you know, what's the impact that they think they're having. It could, you know, often there is consequence of that kind of behavior is that you have, for example, high levels of turnover of people. You don't get you have to have all the ideas yourself. It becomes very tiring and frustrating. So I was get them to think about. Yes, you might, that's the way that you have led. It's often a consequence of the way that they have been led, because they've only ever seen that one approach from someone that they worked for. So get help. So it's a coaching conversation, helping them to see that there is a different way. And might not go to all 5 straight away, but might just say, well, try a few things. Let's talk about the Inspire Hat. Why do people come to work here? Why do you come to work here? You know, so I think it's a series of questions and coaching conversations to help them to see there is a different way. One of the phrases we work in the book, using the book, is that there is no one size fits all. You cannot lead with only one way of behaving.
But if the leader is really strong and forcing and has a really direct style, and there is nobody in the team who is able to do the coaching, what should be the natural next head for such a leader, just to switch a little bit to the new style, not only be a direct style or direct head, but to use some other heads? What should be a natural next head?
I encourage them to go to the coaching hat, to pause and ask a question rather than tell people the answer, and see what reaction they get.
Okay. Chris, because we are run out of time, and I know that people like when the webinar is finished on time, so we will closely finish. Any last sentence to the future book readers?
I hope you please enjoy the book. It's a handbook, and the intention is that it's something you can practically apply. There are many case studies in the book, and it's just all based on real practical experience.
Chris, it was absolute pleasure to see you today, to have a short webinar. See you in Poland on May 19, and we will have a fantastic workshop all together. So again, we invite you to come to Warsaw to the event. If not, the event will be recorded, and if you wish, in some spare time, you can always watch it. Chris, thank you very much for today. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you have at least a little bit of teaser what the book is about, and you will have a willing to read it. This is really fantastic book, one of my top 10 already, so I strongly recommend it. So Chris, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody,
and see you soon in Poland.